for giving us mitzvah and the incredible Hanukkah miracles. The Hanukkah miracle was, of course, on this second night, they didn't expect to be able to light the candle because they only had oil for one night. And by praying to God, the one and only God, which is the contribution, monastic religion is the one of the major contribution of Judaism. And praying to the one true God, he gave his favored people, his chosen people, 8 nights of oil, blessed oil, so that they could celebrate their deliverance from the captivity. Remember? Antiochus II held them in captivity and tried to wipe out their religion. He basically closed down all of their sacramental services and their practices, their mitzvah practices. But most importantly, I mean, not most importantly, but most significantly, I guess, he went into the holy temple, the great temple, where I'm sure many of you have stood there and put little prayers on the wall for reflect of it. And in the temple, he his he considered some form of God in exchange for or in contravention of the one true God. The Maccabees organized the Jewish people into a militia, really, and they took on what was at that point one of the greatest armies in the world, defeated them, got their temple back. When they showed up in the temple, the Seleucids, who they had defeated, had defiled all of the oil but one flask. So they had some for the first night. They prayed to God to make it enough. And it turned out to be enough for the entire night. So we said the earlier prayer. So let's light the second. Let's all pay attention now. This is a religious significance, a religious service. Remember, those of you who are Christians are not used to the fact that a great deal of the religion, of the Hebrew religion is practiced in the home, not just in the temple. You know, we're used to practicing our religion in church. We should practice it at home. We're supposed to, but we end up organizing it in church. They kind of split it between both. For example, the Passover dinner is at home, not in the synagogue or the temple. Now we say, as a prayer, Baruch atah Adonai. That's how we begin. Melech harosh, right? Asher kadei shano b'mitz votav ve'tev vano lekad nik ner Hanukkah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sacrificed us with has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to kindle the Hanukkah light, which we've done. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who performed miracles for our forefathers in those days at this time. And we're praying for his guidance and for his support. And I don't know, should we call it a miracle? I guess we can. And a miracle of keeping Israel safe as the homeland of the Jewish people. So never again can they be without one. And never again can anyone succeed in eliminating them. Just not going to happen. And with Israel as their homeland, that assurance becomes that much more secure. So tonight also, I should mention, is a feast day for the Christian religion, particularly for the more Orthodox Christian religion, the Roman Catholic, the Orthodox, Episcopalian, maybe the Lutheran. Beyond that, probably not. It's the feast of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It's a remembrance of the day that the angel visited her and told her that she would have a son, and his name would be Emmanuel, and he would be the Son of God, and she would have a virgin birth. And she was asked if she would accept it, and she said, "Thy will be done." She immediately, she immediately obeyed the request of the one true God, and became the most revered woman in the Catholic religion, in the Christian, in much of the Christian religion, and the mother of our Lord Jesus Christ. So this is a very significant night for religion, which we sure have to have restored in our country. I was listening today to an interview with one of the J6 defendants who's in prison. I was listening to the interview in prison, and he made he was asked if he supported Trump, which he does. He supports Trump. He says he supports Trump to be president and believes that Trump can fix things as president, but he really believes the only one who can fix things is God. And he said Trump will be an instrument, but this country will be saved by God. This country will be saved the more effectively and the more securely and the faster we return to God. I thought he made a very, very powerful point about the interconnection of a great deal of our problems in this country today. We let them throw God out on us, and it was a terrible mistake. And we are reaping the results of that. Well, today I learned a new word. I don't know if word is worth very much, but what the heck? You always want to expand your vocabulary. Cis heterosexism. Cis heterosexism. Give me my whiteboard over there. Just the big one. Okay. I mean, you got to see this written out to know what it is. Here. Now, this relates to something that is. This is banned at Harvard, or it's banned. It's banned to if you do this, you violate their rules. Not depending on the context in which you do it, but you just violate their rules, like for sure. And that wonderful Congresswoman. Stefanik, who ripped apart. I mean, I never saw 3 Ivy League presidents get destroyed. 1, 2, 3, boom, boom. It was like Billy the Kid, you know, boop, boop, boop. She shot them all down. Here's the word. Yeah, you figure that word out. I think I spelled it right.
Throw on an H.
Oh, I missed the H?
Yeah.
Cis, H. Yeah. I got to put an H in here. Oh, my goodness, I didn't put an H in here. I got to put the H in here. We can't forget the H. There. Okay, is that right now?
Can you cis heterosexism?
Okay. Now, does anybody want to try a definition of it? Or do you want me to read it?
I thought it was like a feminine guy who does whatever the girl says. You're my queen. I'm going to wait on you. Something like that. No.
Now let me. So I'm. Get my.
You mean like a sissy?
Cis heterosexism.
Could you move just a little, Rob? I need to see. I need to see the doctor, and I need to see the time. If you can move a little to the right.
That's this is from the University of North Carolina.
That's my.
The University of North Carolina says cis heterosexism is the societal and institutional privileging of heterosexuality, which I think is straight, cisgender identity, which I also think
nobody remembers what that is anymore.
Straight. I think all of that is straight.
Straight people.
I think cisgender and heterosexual both refer to being straight, right? Historically, how we used to use the term straight. I have a feeling that term is probably derogatory.
Oh,
right?
it's so boring. It's
Yeah,
so boring. You're just like an old person.
So cis heterosexism is the societal and institutional privileging of heterosexuality, cisgender identity, and binary sex assignment as the norm. So,
Well, can I give you the definition from the school that has the football team you root for?
yeah.
No, I know the other one, Michigan State.
Oh God. No,
So
no.
you won't accept this one.
Yeah.
Cis heterosexism, the system of oppression that values and centers cisgender and heterosexual people
Exactly.
by upholding heterosexuality
Yes.
and the gender binary as normal and neutral, while marginalizing, oppressing, and making invisible.
Yes.
Now, wait until you listen to the number of these letters now. Remember LGBTQ? Remember that? Now it's oppressing and making invisible. L, G, B, T, Q, I, A, 2, S plus.
And by the way,
One more time, just in case you.
they just added a colon. Sorry, in the last. So now it's a colon. So,
Man, we're gonna have like protests now.
So that's right. So this word.
What the hell are those last ones?
So what they're suggesting is that if you are to treat,
Like what I'm doing now, making fun.
doing, yeah. Well, no. So
Well, you know what happens?
you're not allowed to basically treat any.
You
sex.
violate the rules.
I actually don't even know,
of
right?
Harvard.
Harvard.
You violate the rules of Harvard.
Harvard.
And the best thing could happen. You know what the best thing could happen to you? For your education?
They kick you out.
You got it, Mike. They kick you out. You might actually start learning things like math, history, stuff like that. But no, they penalize you, and you are found guilty of violating their code. You're also guilty of violating their code. Let me see. Like none of this. It depends on the context. If you engage in fat phobia. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Now,
I think some people here maybe.
I would be kicked out of Harvard in 3 seconds.
well, let me read the language of the guide that was based on Title IX, which was the communist President Obama's a contribution to making our universities, follow the Marxist model of falling apart. So based on that, they have a definition that they warned all undergraduate students that cis heterosexual, sexism, fat phobia, and using the wrong pronouns is abuse and perpetuates violence. And you violate the code. But if you call for the genocide of Jews, then you don't violate those rules, depending on the context. Now, this was not only the answer of the genius from Harvard, but this was the answer of the genius from MIT, except she answered it in numbers, because she doesn't. In MIT, they don't teach you words; they just teach you numbers. And then they used to teach words, but now just numbers, and they constantly question your sexuality. They prefer you're changing it at least once. They actually would like twice. And then the third one was Penn. And they just like two trained SEALs just went ahead and said, yes, depends on the context. Now, I really finally came to terms with what's really, really wrong with these schools, with the professors and the teachers and the whole thing. Everybody kind of looks up to them as being, even if they don't like their political ideas and they think they're they think they're very bright and very brilliant. And yeah. So that
was me up until relatively recently.
But that statement there, if we just analyze it as intelligent human beings, which we are, that statement is actually quite stupid. I mean, it indicates a really stupid mind. How could advocating for the complete elimination of a group of people be wrong or right, depending, what do they say? Depending Depending on the context.
Context.
So what context is it? In what context is it right to eliminate the Jewish people?
Never.
So then how does it depend on the context? Well, was that just could we just say it? Was that just a stupid statement?
That's it.
If you want an alibi on this, because your position is ignorant, ridiculous, Marxist, evil, and immoral, then at least, I mean, I knew criminals who did intelligent alibis.
Yeah.
These guys are not as smart as the criminals I used to prosecute. I mean, you come up with this is complete bull. It depends on is advocating for the genocide of the Jewish people, is it a violation of the rules or not? It depends on the circumstances. Okay, but I'm surprised that my good friend Elise didn't ask him, please give me just one circumstance under which it wouldn't be a violation of the rules to advocate for the elimination of the Jewish people. Would you give me that answer, genius?
And Mayor, we're actually giving them the benefit of the doubt by calling them stupid, because the alternative is they know what they're saying.
No,
and it's,
I don't
and
think
it's,
they would say
and
that
it's
because
disgusting.
It's stupid.
It has to be stupid, right? Because the alternative is,
for example, when Trump said that Xi Jinping was very smart, Xi Jinping would not say something stupid like that. He would say something that was defensible, something that in an evil context was defensible.
Exactly.
Maybe he would say what he believes, which is they do the same thing to the Palestinian people. They don't, but he'd say that. But to say it depends on the context. I'd like to know the context under which it's okay to wipe out the Jewish people. And until you can come up with that, I think all three of them should quit immediately. Now, if they don't quit, they're going to, at least in the case of Penn, they're going to lose a bundle. God bless. His name is Ross Stevens. I know nothing about Ross Stevens. He may be the biggest left-wing in the world, and he's going to vote for one of those crazy Democrats. But for today, Ross Stevens, you're helping us win our country back, Ross. He's trying to take his $100 million contribution to Penn back because it's in the form of stock. And it has certain moral clauses attached to it. He's got the law firm of Davis Polk working on it, which is one of the best and one of the most expensive. So he's going to get the best. He's going to get like,
oh, they're going to.
First of all, they're going to charge him Davis Polk just to talk to him. You know, it's like they're going to charge him a fortune. But he's got it.
Take a phone call.
Say hello.
But man, it's good having these lawyers working on our side. I mean, geez, you know, Trump better keep his mouth shut about this, or they'll all turn against it. You know, like they did with hydroxychloroquine, and they did with the wall. They're all in favor of the wall.
Well,
Schumer, Pelosi, you know.
the wall only works if Biden says it works, Mayor. You know that. Come on. If Trump says the wall works, it doesn't work. But if Biden says so, then
well, you know, they actually, his administration decided to build some of the wall, but they didn't send him the memo because the wall doesn't work. They didn't tell him.
No.
I swear to God, no, I'm serious.
All right.
They didn't tell Jerko. They didn't tell him.
That's amazing.
So they came to him on one of those little things like he said, "Well, I see you now. Agree with the wall." No, I don't. The wall doesn't work. He's building 25 miles of wall. And his administration said, yeah, in this area it would work. And Cherkoff said, no, it doesn't work.
Well, it might.
So Ross Stevens is going to take his $100 million back if the, geez, I'm looking at this face of Liz McGill and I'm saying, no wonder they, now I don't want to be nasty, but I am.
So what I would,
look how stupid she looks.
so out of all three,
She got that Biden look on her face. Like,
yeah. So out of all three presidents, President McGill has faced, I would say Mayor has faced the most backlash. There are growing calls for her to step down.
well, they've had violence on her campus against Jewish people. I mean, she probably should have gone before this, but they've had some violence at Harvard. I don't know about MIT. They had violence at NYU. They had violence against Jewish people at Columbia. I'm pretty sure Columbia, maybe not Columbia.
Students have held a rally outside her office amid the uproar.
The last big pro-Palestinian rally turned into turned into violence. Yeah, it says right here.
So, and of course, the Harvard, the president of
Well,
Harvard,
they
has
want her to go
also
too, right?
they want her to go. The MIT one, like we talked about, not as much anger. However,
There's going to be a big numbers rally against her. They're going to use numbers that suggest you go because they don't think in words anymore. They're not allowed to think in words.
out of those, and I don't know if this is fair or not. You know these schools. You've actually taught at least one of the 3 schools we just mentioned. Is it true? I've always thought MIT the smartest of the 3 because for whatever reason, I just think of
Yeah,
it
it's
as like
hard
a
to
tech
talk in
school,
numbers,
right?
yeah.
And like you got it, you can't
The
fake
only
it.
problem with them is they can't write or read. They just use numbers.
Yeah, but MIT, right? Tech, real, like where Harvard, you know.
Here's the real
and
problem with presidents like this. Nobody teaches them to think. Thinking is think.
This was reported.
Think.
Diversity of thought.
Oh, that's very dangerous thinking. You might
Mayor,
become politically incorrect if you think.
We got to take a break, but how did it get this way on what's supposed to be the most elite institutions? Yeah, I've always thought they're liberal, but my goodness, how do they become intolerant of
It's very easy. You know how it got this way. Because it's been part of the program from 1850 of Karl Marx.
Right.
To invade the schools and ruin the educational system of any country they're going to take over. You can't have an educational system that's going to teach people to be intelligent and rational and sensible. And my goodness, you don't want them to learn Greek logic. If they learn Greek logic, they'd rip socialism apart in 2 seconds.
So
they are enforcing on people an ideology that is counter human nature and counter common sense. Any well-educated person able to do deductive reasoning would reject socialism in a second. Any person that can read history would reject it because it's been tried now, with the exception of China. Well, even China, it's been tried 27 times and it's failed every time. China doesn't even have socialism right now. It has some very, very strange form of socialism combined with capitalism, but really it's a dictatorship. It's a state economy, a state-dominated economy. And it's not socialism or communism because the top 100 million people are all very wealthy. And the top 10% of that are billionaires. So communism is like completely ridiculous. But I mean, but so was Stalin a billionaire, and so was Khrushchev, and so was Mao, and so is Xi Jinping. It's a completely phony evil. I know people will reject this, but you know, I would urge them to read if they still do that. Karl Marx compares himself to Satan. He rejects God, and he basically argues to narcissists, and they make you into a narcissist. That you don't need God; you're God. What do you need God for? You know everything. You can know everything. God is just the opiate that you need to get for them to control you. You control yourself because you know everything. Almost sounds like the story of Adam and Eve, doesn't it? And he's the serpent. And you know, that's very, very attractive to people who are narcissistic, arrogant. Boy, we're just describing an Ivy League school, right? Narcissistic, arrogant. They may be very smart. The only thing they're not is as smart as they think they are. How many people have you met from there that are like that? They're very smart, but it's kind of useless because when you are smart and you believe you're smart, but you think you're smarter than you really are, you really become stupid. Does that make sense?
Unrelatable.
Yeah. I mean, one of the greatest pieces of wisdom from one of the earliest philosophers is that the sign of an intelligent man is the man who knows that he doesn't know.
Yes.
And therefore is constantly seeking help to fill in what you don't know. That's something that is gone in our society and needs to be reacquired. It's something that gets beyond everything we've talked about. It's called wisdom. And with that, we'll take a short break. Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live, and welcome to the special segment, Remedial Geography for Presidential Candidates Who Are Dumb, which includes the one at the United Nations that could not mention the regions of Ukraine that were under dispute with the Russians, even though she spent several years at the UN. This must have been because she spent too much time at cocktail parties and not enough time looking at maps. But I love maps. I have a lot of them. I read them all the time. You know, I like to use them. So, and also this happens to be, luckily, a country I really know. In fact, if you need driving directions in the Russian part, as well as the Ukrainian part, I can give a lot of them to you.
That was your response. When I did I not ask you when Vivek asked,
Princess,
when Vivek asked,
I
I just want to say this, Mayor. I'm going to brag on your behalf a little bit. I asked, hey, Mayor, would you have, when Vivek asked these guys on stage, can you name 3 regions of Ukraine? Couldn't name one. I'm thinking, could I name one? Hey, Mayor, can you name one? He's like, not only can I name them, I can give you driving directions. Where do you want to go, Ted? and it's true.
You know, Chris Matthews tried that one on me, and I'll tell you, we'll get it sometime and play it. So there's Ukraine. In the year 900 plus, this was Russia.
Kevin Roos.
Russia started right here. See my little thing there? This is where Russia started, right here. In Kyiv, it was called Kyiv Rus.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And the tribes that came together there are the earliest Ukrainians or Russians or both. And they adopted in about 9 something, I've forgotten, I think the latter part of the 900s, they adopted the Christian religion. And they were the first in far Eastern Europe to adopt the Christian religion. It had been prevalent in Europe now, since about 400. But now it reached Kyiv Rus, and then it spread out. So Russia is here, right around here. Russia surrounds this part of Ukraine. And I want you to look at a city that is of special interest to me, Kharkiv. Kharkiv is right here. I just marked it right there. You notice it's right on the border, right? There's the border. There's the city. Look at that.
So at what time? That was all Russia?
Well, or was it all Ukraine? That's the problem.
The chicken or the egg? Which one?
That's the problem. That's the historical problem that is now over 1,000 years old of dispute. But Kharkiv is very, very, I think this is about 10 miles right this year. So it's basically in Russia, just about. And as a result of that, many of the people here cross every day, or used to work in Russia, vice versa. Many of them are ethnically Russian and came to live there because it is a very pretty city. Second biggest city in Ukraine, biggest one being Kyiv, right? It's a lovely city, a very pretty city, a very well-kept city, a very well-educated city. So it's a desirable place to live. Really, on the Russian side, the next really big city is way over in Moscow. So even for Russians, the Russians will come there to shop. And this, I'm going back before Putin's invasions. And politically, it's Ukrainian, but it voted for the party in Ukraine, the party of regions that supported Putin. Remember, they had two parties. They were split almost 50-50. This is before 2014. Half were Ukrainian nationalists. We're Ukrainian. We want our own language. That's our real language. We don't want to be taught in Russian. We want our own church. We don't want a Ukrainian Orthodox church mixed up with the Russian Orthodox church because Putin controls it. Russian nationalists, Ukrainian nationalists, half the population. I'm being just, not giving you we go back and forth a bit, about half the population. Other half of the population, we don't want to be owned by Russia. We don't want to be part of the Soviet Union like we were. Very few people want that. But we want a close relationship with Russia. They really are kinsmen. And we tend to go more in that direction than wanting to be allies with Europe. So, and it breaks down a lot, although people move, breaks down a lot like this, right? So here's Eastern Ukraine. Here's Western Ukraine. Very European, Lviv, almost a Polish city. You even have 10% of Ukraine is Catholic, Roman Catholic,
Hey,
like
us.
under the Pope, unlike the other Orthodox communities. They practice both a form of Eastern Rite Roman Catholicism, Latin Rite Roman Catholicism, but they belong to the Catholic Church. That's the group that very much wants to be part of EU, NATO, the whole thing. Over here, it tends to be more Russian oriented. So the Russians, when they came in, when Putin came in, we all believe his overall desire was to take it all. This is enormously valuable to Russia. It has been both when Napoleon tried to take them and Hitler. It's been the bulwark. It's been the protection. It's been the moat around the castle. Napoleon made the mistake of trying to navigate through Ukraine, and he really lost. He finally got to Moscow for the Battle of Moscow, but by the time he got to Moscow, it was over. Hitler tried something different. Hitler went around it. He didn't want to take on Ukraine. He went around it, and as a result of that, he dispersed his troops so much that the Russians, before he got close to Moscow, had pretty much defeated him and chased him out of Russia. But it was either going through Ukraine or going around Ukraine that would wear out an army, wear it down, and with their terrible winters, make the supply lines impossible. Second, it's the breadbasket of Russia. It's smaller than Russia, but it's a big country. It's a country of 50 million people, which is a big country. It has great natural resources. Probably not as many as Russia because it's smaller, per capita, greater. But here's what it does have, even not even just per capita, just gross. It's got very, very great land for agriculture. Breadbasket of Eastern Europe. It's the leading agricultural country in Eastern Europe. For here we consider Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, the Balkans, Poland, Romania right next to it, Moldova, and Russia, Belarus. It supplies them with more food than they can produce until Stalin decided to cut them off and starve them all. One of Stalin's unbelievable, vicious acts to get the Ukrainian people down to the ones who definitely wanted to be Russian. What did he kill? 20 million? We're talking about genocide, right? Wow. And by the way, the communists covered it up. Nobody believed it. People were put in jail advocating it. They were dismissed from both the United States and the UK Foreign Service were completely snowed and also infiltrated by communists. There's a great movie, I'll get you the name of it, to watch about this. It's really fascinating. And it had and the covering up of this has something to do with Orwell's book, 1984. It's when he found out about this, that he was a socialist and leaning toward communism. When he found out about what they did to Ukraine, he flipped completely. And that's when he did 1984. So the areas that are controlled are all in here. They attempted to take Kharkiv. I am very proud of my friends in Kharkiv, and they are friends, because the Russian road to Crimea begins about here. See, like this, and there's Odessa, and this is still part of Ukraine. They lost probably, I don't know if they lost more troops trying to take Kharkiv than any place else, but pretty close to it. But they never took Kharkiv. They may have lost more troops down here in Mariupol, Melitopol, and Kherson. Why? Because the Ukrainians wanted to break their bridge to the sea. See? Okay? They want to get here. They don't want to get to this.
They want to get there
Because this takes you right out to the Mediterranean. Takes you right out to the ocean. The Black Sea, being on the Black Sea makes you a much more, I mean, in Soviet days, Crimea was part of Russia, and Crimea was their main submarine base. Now, Khrushchev gave Ukraine Crimea. Very, very controversial. Putin to this day curses him for doing it. Why did Khrushchev do that? Does anyone know why Khrushchev did that? It's class.
Yeah, he's from Ukraine.
You got it. He was a Ukrainian.
So he understood. Well, someone argued
He loved Ukraine.
He understood the dynamics of Crimea.
He had a little bit of that split feeling in him. I mean, a lot of Ukrainians are Russian, and they want to be friendly with Russia. A lot of Ukrainians are Russian, half Russian, and they hate Russia. I'm not going to say he does, but the mayor of Kyiv, who everyone knows, by the way, you just don't know that you know him. The mayor of Kyiv is half Russian and half Ukrainian, but he's not half in terms of his patriotism and his desires. Always, from the day I've met him, he is a very, very dedicated, patriotic Ukrainian. Would rather not have bad relations with Russia. His dad served in the Russian army, but he realizes that Russia,
Vitaly Klitschko,
the heavyweight champion of the world, and his brother was the heavyweight champion of the world.
He is the mayor. He's the mayor.
And he was the dominant of the two as a heavyweight champ. Man was unbelievable heavyweight champ. He was 6'7".
Yes.
You couldn't get near him. He was like half the people he fought couldn't even find him. I mean, he's gigantic. I took a picture with him about 12 years ago. I look like, a dwarf. I was trying to find the right word.
He's a giant.
He is a giant, and he's a giant soul too. He's got a great
soul.
So this is it. So now, we're going to take a short break, and while we take that short break, we're going to turn the map around, and we're going to show you the miracle of if Nikki and
Jersey's former governor,
took a look at this rather than Christie constantly looking at bridges, he would have found out the four places that Vivek was talking about. I mean, it's just a matter of, guys, you want to be president, you got to read. You get a lot of briefing material. You got to read. Chris, don't you remember on the plane, Trump, for all the garbage you're saying about Trump? Remember Trump used to bring a box. Did he bring a box with him?
Of
What was in the
material?
box? What was in the box, liar? Newspapers, huh? And articles and excerpts from books and books. And when he's doing nothing else, he's going through them, right? Like I do, like that, you know? It's
Is
because-
it similar to how you do it?
That's because we study.
That's funny.
You guys don't study. You just do like Haley reminds me of a political commercial.
Yes, yeah.
That's
Everything
what
she
they
says is a
are.
bumper
They're
sticker.
fake.
Everything she
fit-
says is
you-
like somebody came up with a 12-word way of
Yeah.
trying to explain the Ukraine war.
Her handlers told her this is how you respond to that and to this.
She's a product of the
Ukraine.
attention deficit disorder age in which they can't think. So let's take a short break, and we're going to flip around the map, and we're going to get the right answer to the question, which if these people had the discipline and the concentration to read, it would not have been a problem for them.
Our device is something that you can plug into your television, and now you can use your television as a social television type experience. So in the Portal universe, you can watch your favorite content creators' videos, live streams, music. We also have TV subscriptions as well.
TV
so
subscriptions,
you can also
regular channels, all the sports.
Right, you can actually cut your cable from your cable subscription and get QUX TV on our QX TV boxes, and you can pay half the price that you're currently paying for your cable television subscription, and you can get all the best premium TV channels and more. I mean, it's really, there's so much on there, Rudy. I mean, you've seen it.
No, I've seen it and I use it, and it's good. I mean, it's great. It's just exactly the same except for half the price. Plus, nobody is finding out what I'm watching, and that's not being reported to anybody.
Right, so you have absolute privacy using this device, which you don't have on other devices out there currently on the market.
This is absolutely great. QUX.TV is how you can find out about it. QUX.TV.
Use promo code RUDY to receive $30 off.
All right, before I tackle this map, I got to get my energy back up. Veggies, fruits. Here they are. Okay, now the map behind me, as you see, is showing you where the Russians have captured significant portions of Ukraine. And you can see that it is a bridge to the sea. They did accomplish that. Don't forget, balanceofnature.com, promo code Rudy.
That's right. Be sure to go to
35% discount.
35% off. And I can't think of a better Christmas gift, Hanukkah present, or just, something to give your friends during the
I
holiday
don't know
season.
if you're half Jewish and half Christian, Hanukkah, Christmas.
Not only are you showing your friend how much you care about them, but you're telling them that you want them to be around for a very long time.
All right, take a picture of this and send it to Nikki Haley and say, Nikki, if you paid attention in school, you would know this. Okay.
No. She doesn't get. She was the UN ambassador. How did she not know this?
All right. If you paid attention at the UN, you would know this.
Right?
The regions are, or shall we get really, really fancy? The oblasts are.
Yes.
The oblasts are Luhansk Oblast, Donetsk Oblast, Mariupol, Kherson, Crimea. There you go. And notice, you can enter. This is what since Russia accomplished that, which was much harder than they thought. Twice, maybe three times, Zelensky has tried to split it. He's tried to put a line through it. You might remember the Battle of Kherson. This was a very, very big battle. Not as necessary for the bridge as for putting fortifications around Crimea. But these were the battles that were critical. Mariupol was one of the major battles because it's right on the water. So what the Ukrainians wanted to do is to just separate that,
Right.
make this white right here, like that, like the Israelis did in Gaza when they split the road from north to south Gaza. They essentially made it impossible for the people of Gaza to go from north to south without going through the IDF. Well, the Ukrainians wanted to do the same thing. They wanted a bridge to the sea. They wanted a bridge in the middle of it so that Russia couldn't get to the sea. And the major place they tried was here. They've tried other places, but obviously this would be the best, right? Or any of these places here, this would not be as effective because you're not going to. Well, I guess if you cut them off anywhere, it would be effective, but you want to cut them off a little bit into it. So those are the regions, and there's the geography of Ukraine. I fear that you better get to know it because there seems to be no end. One of the other things that is very much concerning about this is there's no strategy, and as General Powell would say in his rules of war, which could also be considered Ronald Reagan's, you shouldn't fight a war without a end game. What's your end game? You tell me what the end game is. Russia giving back all this? Russia's going to give all this back? Ukraine be able to take it all back? They've already spent $130 billion. They want $60 billion more. They haven't made a dent. You think the $60 billion is going to really make the difference when the $130 billion didn't? And how much of the $60 billion gets to the properly used? The country that's the second most corrupt country in the world, which, by the way, for all of the bull, Zelensky's not done a damn thing about, and he remains the indebted servant of the biggest money launderer in Ukraine, Mr. Kolomoisky, who is a world-class criminal. So I would like to ask Kara to join us for a few minutes, if you don't mind, because we heard Kara Castronova, as you know, is a great
Here, Rob, pull him back up.
is a great investigative journalist. She's on Newsmax every Saturday night, and you can see it on Sunday on Wise Guys, and she's been doing some very great interviews on this whole on these demonstrations. And are you surprised, Kara? Because I'm watching your face doing the interviews. I almost see like a little bit of surprise in your face at the level of the hatred that's involved here of the Jewish people.
Well, I didn't. The interview you probably saw where I was surprised was last week. And are you talking about the one when I went to the Bronx?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you see that one where everybody in the Bronx was
they all love
Trump?
They all love Trump.
Did you see that?
Yes, we did see those ones, Mayor. Yeah.
We're going to win the Bronx.
Yes, I think so.
You
And
better watch out
I
for
think
cheating.
they would
up there.
probably vote for you for mayor again. And I was shocked, like the look of shock.
That was
on
my
their
hardest
face.
borough.
It's
was my
the
toughest
Lewisboro
borough.
in New York. I think
It's the most democratic,
Right, it's the
believe it or
most.
not.
And it's only Hispanic majority, and I think it's like almost close to 90% of the Bronx is Democrat. But
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
I talked to was saying Trump. They were shouting Trump 2024.
I saw that.
Wow.
And everybody accused you, but you made it clear to John that you didn't do any picking and choosing.
No, I didn't. I was, when you do a Newsmax package,
This is gonna be a
and I was also on Wise Guys,
selection.
but it's a 2.5 minute package. It took me hours to sift through the footage because there was so much. I had so many people literally like in barbershops, hair salons, diners, just going off on how much they hate Biden, can't stand him. They had Biden derangement syndrome and how everybody was totally 100% for Donald Trump. So it was really, really surreal to hear people in the Bronx shouting Trump 2024.
You think it's that way in other parts of the city?
I do. I'm going to go to Brooklyn next. I think I'm going to go to Brownsville or Bed-Stuy.
Yeah, do that because it would knowing the city politically, of course, 20 years ago, but still it hasn't changed that much. That would be the last place you would think.
The last place. And I think Brooklyn is the last place too. I think if I go to Asian parts of Queens, that'll be the third place I go. I suspect they're going to lean towards Trump this year, but I would never have suspected the Hispanic population in the Bronx or say the Black community in Brooklyn and the really, really, the old neighborhoods. That's where I'm going to go next. And I have a feeling that, these indictments with Trump really endeared him.
I got, I'm going to tell you a strange thing. I got that feeling when I went to jail. I got that feeling when I went to get photographed and fingerprinted. I had to go, and they did this because they're creeps. They did this just to embarrass me, Trump and Meadows. I've done 1,000 photographs and fingerprints. You do it right in the court.
Right.
The marshal does it right in the court. It's a room in the courthouse. You come in, you do the before or after. You get fingerprinted, you get photographed, you treat the person like a gentleman or a lady. They did it a mile away at the prison, which is one of the worst prisons in the United States. The prison has been taken over by the federal government. It's so bad because the crooked county of Fulton County can't run a prison. I mean, they can't run anything. They can't run a city. They can't run a prison. They can't run a police department. They certainly can't run a DA's office. So in order to go to the area where you got fingerprinted and photographed, there must be a door that gets you right into that. No. We came in a door and we walked through 2 levels of cells.
And you passed by all the prisoners.
All the recently.
I'm sure they were clapping and
clapped
cheering.
like crazy. Yeah. There wasn't a boo. And then I asked Trump later, the same thing.
Right.
I mean, it was like, and they were yelling out my name, Rudy.
Really?
Rudy.
See,
But half
it's
of them
real.
half of them probably from New York.
It's real. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's a thing. Like, when,
But I got the feeling it's like, now you understand what we go through.
right. But at the same time, they understand what you're going through, and I really feel like it kind of gives you guys more street cred. Not that you didn't have it anymore.
And
You didn't have any
some
before.
very, very unrepeatable remarks about Fanny, the prosecutor.
Right.
So tell me about the District of Columbia, just in a general way. Because next week we're going to try to put you on specifically about one judge. But generally, how often, when they sentence, do they give sentences beyond what the prosecutor is asking for?
Well, there's been a lot of studies on that. And, if you're comparing it to the riots of Antifa, or, for example, what they call the J20, which nobody heard of, it's January 20th, when Trump was inaugurated, there was a similar riot to January 6th. This is going back now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these people were arrested, and they called themselves political prisoners, but they never went to jail pre-trial, and all of their cases were dropped. And now they're suing the government.
The
first inauguration, there was riots, and there were people that were trying to stop the inauguration of Donald Trump. So those people never got sentenced. The government dropped their charges, and now they're suing the government, and they probably will win money from the government. So it's
so
really
they're going to get money for rioting, and the other people have been detained for 2 years.
Well, they're saying that
in jail for 20.
they're saying they were politically persecuted, even though they never spent a day in jail, even though nothing came of anything, and all
Like
the charges were dropped.
The 2020 riot is almost all of whom were dismissed by Soros prosecutors.
Right. So
because they very carefully did the riots in Soros jurisdictions, and nobody wants to note that. Just like they did the election cheating in crooked Democratic cities. They didn't do all over the country. They picked the most crooked Democratic cities.
Well, yeah, and DC is probably the most crooked and the most coincidentally the most Democratic in allegedly their votership.
The most insane Democratic,
right?
Meaning, you got a little hope in some of these other cities that people can think.
Right, like New York. Like I have hope in New York. I haven't lost hope in New York, but DC I have.
I've tried cases in front of New York juries, a long time ago, but I tried many, many cases, and I always found that when they had to sit on a jury, they very often could overcome the prejudices. This Trump thing is a different phenomenon that I've never had to deal with in that regard. And it really is a sickness.
It is. And I think, I think if the trials were here in New York, let's just say the people from the boroughs, like the real New Yorkers, and this, are different than the liberals that come from other places here to Manhattan. So I think if you had a jury, if Trump did, say, from the Bronx, Brooklyn, people that were born and raised there, it would be a very different jury than, say, people who live in Manhattan who moved here from Wisconsin, who are those type of liberals.
Yeah, I think
they don't have street smarts. They don't have common sense.
100%.
They can't, their minds can't be changed. They've made up their minds because they've watched the fake news. But, people like, I think the people I spoke to, for example, in the Bronx, are the type of people that are like, wait a second, this evidence doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That's not computed.
So they don't, if you were watching the last couple of weeks, CNN, MSNBC, and you believe them, you would believe that Trump is getting ready to be the next Stalin. That he's getting ready to take over, be a dictator, and never. Somebody was even asked, do you think after 4 years, might have been Hillary, you think after 4 years he'll leave? And they said, absolutely not.
Yeah,
if he gets elected, he'll be there.
It's so
lucky.
ridiculous.
I think somebody said lucky he's an old man.
And it's funny to me how people like Robert De Niro are still coming out and saying crazy things like they'll move out of the country if Trump gets in office.
Please.
The country was doing great, and they know it. So the fact
Why
that they're
does he-
still,
why does he move out of the country?
I
We
know
don't-
that would
we
be,
don't-
he's very embarrassing for an Italian, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but a lot of these people promise it and they never do.
I know, they all said, and they
stick
stuck around.
I
right?
think Baldwin promised to leave if Bush was elected. Had he left, that girl would be alive.
Right, that's true. Wish
Right?
they would all leave,
It-
but they don't. They stay.
Oh, but he didn't push. He didn't
Mhm.
pull the trigger. That's the only gun in the history of the world that fired itself. And they got to be very careful now that guns can fire themselves.
Right.
I mean, a gun could be in the drawer, comes out by itself, and it shoots you. That's what Baldwin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad story.
And
I know.
of course, they put it in the newspaper. If that, let's say that was, there aren't too many. Who Mel Gibson.
Kelsey
they rip him
Grammer.
apart. They
Who's
rip
that
him-
other, the one that's always, John Voight.
Oh, John Voight. They
we love John.
John Voight. They put him in an insane asylum. if he said
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's
They
Yeah.
carry him off. They
Mhm.
send in the stormtroopers. They tell me why they did that to Kara. Why it gets me so annoyed to see these people arrested with military. It looks like military troops. Some of them have like machine guns.
I mean, they're afraid for 2024. It's
They-
to
they
make an
are.
impression on the
But
neighbors,
these
and
people
it's
didn't do any violence.
right. No, yeah, they come in with
They're not being arrested for any violence.
armored vehicles. They come in with helicopters. The FBI comes in with battering rams and traumatizes people and makes a spectacle in front of the neighborhood. And now, people are still getting arrested. Last week, a friend of mine, Siaka, who's an African-American gentleman from California, was arrested. He's a peaceful protester. I feel like now at the beginning, I was suspicious they weren't really arresting minority Trump supporters because they wanted to keep the whole white supremacy narrative alive. But now they're arresting, I think they're going after finally Black Trump supporters because
Yes,
he's
yeah.
having more support from the Black population and from the Hispanic voters. So now I think they're trying to to say, see what happens if you
Well, the
support
Black-
Trump, you're going to go to jail
The
like this
black
guy.
defendant in the case that I'm in Atlanta, where we're both indicted, they kept him in jail for 6 days or 5 days. The judge wouldn't come back from her weekend vacation.
Right.
It was a holiday weekend, and I tried to reach him. I couldn't get through to him. I don't know him. I don't know half the people in the
Yeah,
case.
no, I know.
I conspired with them, but I don't know them. And my best witness is going to be Sidney Powell, who's cooperating. Sidney Powell said, we stopped talking very early. Well, if we stopped talking, how can we conspire?
Right. It's crazy. And then the whole
We
Jenna
didn't-
Ellis thing
I didn't know what
too.
she was doing. She didn't know what
Yeah.
I was doing. So we can't be conspiring.
Yeah, it's very sad. I'm sorry. I think you're going to be good though. God wins in the end, and you are going to be fine.
Yeah, I think so too, but you can't count on it. And they are really, that means crazy. That's I was taught to speak that way at Harvard.
Did you go to Harvard?
No, thank God. That's why I'm so intelligent.
Harvard. Well, maybe let's take.
I
a quick
actually
break,
went
wrap up.
I actually went to a school where you had to read books by everybody, not just communist brainwashers. Well, we're coming near the end of our show. Everyone is signaling me. I can't imagine. It's unbelievable. We're getting all kinds of signals here. I think it's a Friday night in there. They want to make sure that Rudy doesn't go over. And we're having such a good conversation.
Well, maybe she wants
We'll
to
do-
stick around for soccer time.
Yeah, we'll do a little soccer time with Kara, and then we'll let you go have your weekend, because we'll be back on Monday on WABCRadio.com. As Rob just said, today's show was a really good one. Today's show was a good show. You can always, some of them are better than others. And then on Monday, we'll be back at 3:00 on WABCRadio.com. On Sunday, we'll be on WABCRadio.com on Uncovering the Truth with the incomparable Dr. Maria. And we'll uncover something. We always uncover something, and we always have a great, great show. And I think we get kind of our best audience for that one. I don't want to insult anybody, but I really do think we get a very good participatory audience. Unlike the Republican candidates that are running against Trump. Though I think those people know where Ukraine is, unlike Nikki Haley. Well,
She couldn't even get Crimea.
mm-mm,
I mean,
no. She couldn't. She should.
She
couldn't-
just stood there
She
with
had a
the.
blindfold.
It wasn't in the. It wasn't in the.
It was hilarious.
It wasn't in the cliff notes for running for president. We'll be back next week on Twitter and all the rest of them. God bless America.
Body is an amazing chemical laboratory. When you give it the right chemistry, it functions the best. Balance of Nature is the ultimate whole fruit and vegetable chemistry.
Get 35% off your first order by using discount code RUDY.
You're back, man.
Okay, if you don't believe me, listen to Dr. Howard and order your Balance of Nature. Balanceofnature.com, promo code Rudy, and stick it in the Christmas stocking or the Hanukkah stocking. I don't know. You still got one, two. You got 6 more days, right?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think yesterday was the first day.
6 more days. We got a whole bunch more candles to light, and we got to get ourselves a dreidel and play. You and I. The dreidel.
yeah.
Did you ever play with a dreidel? It's fun.
Absolutely. My good friend. I have some good
I
friends.
know. You have a bit of a Jewish background.
I'm
also.
not as Jewish as you, Mayor, but I got a little bit of it.
I know. So now let's go back to how do these people get? I mean, how do they? Is there only hope that Trump gets elected and they get pardoned?
Pretty much.
Otherwise, they're going to be in prison for like the ridiculous sentences they got: 5 years, 6 years, 10.
Well, there's
What was the
20,
biggest-
22. And they're trying to, then the prosecutors are trying to get more on the 22-year sentence. They're trying to get it. Well, I've never heard of that
Well,
before.
wait,
After
the guy
fact.
already got a 20, and
they're trying to get more time added. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
I haven't either.
I'm
But
trying to think if I
neither-
ever did that. I ever tried to. I mean, you have to commit another crime.
I have. There's unprecedented things
Well, they're
happening in
vicious
DC.
animals. Please, they're vicious animals. Look, we turned over to the district U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia a lot of the material on January 6th that's exculpatory, and man, it never saw the light of day.
No, I
It
know.
never saw the light of day.
There was a lot of.
I mean, and that's the guy that turned down the indictment of Hunter Biden. That eventually, a year later, they got in Delaware. So this guy is a complete sellout for Biden. And now that case in California that you just saw, U.S. attorney there turned it down also as a cover up for Biden. So we got a lot of really, really not shaky, let's be straight about it, crooked U.S. attorneys, a tragedy. This never affected U.S. attorneys' offices before. I used to run them all. This is a horrible thing that they've done to us by destroying our system of justice. It's a horrible thing.
It seems like the easiest thing to destroy too, because nobody oversees it. It's like nobody votes for judges. Nobody's paying attention to court. Most of it's not televised. Whereas, like, with the Congress and the presidency, everybody knows what's going on. So,
But that's a wonderful thing you just said. Nobody votes for judges. That's really the core of the corruption
In New York.
of New York City judges,
right.
because they are supposed to be voted, but they run like a communist country. They run unopposed.
Right. That happens in
they-
New York.
because we have one dominant party like the Communist Party.
Yeah.
There is no opposition party. And the way to become a judge is to suck up to the county leader, who, as you know, is hardly a paragon of virtue, right? He's a slimy political hack, and he's looking for judges that are going to do his bidding.
Right.
And even if he's not a crook, and that's, I guess there are a few, every once in a while, there's an exception. He's a guy that wants politically, he wants them to decide it his way.
Right.
So on a political case, they're going to be completely corrupted. I learned that at NYU Law School. One of my law professors said, if you ever do election cases, you're not going to get it. On an election case, the judge will go with the guy who appointed him.
It's very sad. When I was younger, I always thought judges were these wise people that were supposed to be fair and balanced, and they're the opposite of.
I'm shocked because you're dealing with federal judges.
Federal judges are the worst.
I know
They're the worst.
It wasn't that way. Federal judges, from time immemorial, have always been chosen on more of a merit basis. Even the senators who choose them usually put together a panel. And the panel selects a lot of the. I remember when I was U.S. attorney, associate attorney general, rather, we tried to start the practice, which took hold, that a senator should get 3 choices, So you see three people and can compare them, and eventually they get appointed by the president, but they're really appointed by the senator. So like when they like to say that it's Trump's appointment, it's not. It's the senator's appointment,
Right.
by and large. Every once in a while, a president will know somebody well enough.
I think Trump would be rolling. Well, Trump is probably like upset now looking at some of the people that are appointed in DC,
yeah.
like Judge Kelly, who's terrible. Like some of the appointees that were recommended by, I'm assuming, Mitch McConnell and that crew
Yeah.
are not good judges. I mean, most of them are corrupt, Republicans included. A lot of Trump appointed judges in DC have completely turned on him, turncoats.
And the part that is amazing is that they're more bloodthirsty than the prosecutors.
They are.
And the prosecutors are bloodthirsty.
Oh, that's a really good point. And I'll tell you more about that later. But yeah, they are. A lot of the judges are, they're acting as activists from the bench. And there's cases where they're even getting mad at the prosecutors. Why aren't they bringing more charges? I don't know. Is that normal?
No.
I was not a lawyer.
Usually a judge likes fewer charges because he
Right.
gets rid of the case faster.
No, yeah. The judges.
The
in
judge,
DC.
the judge leaves to the prosecutor being the angry one and the one who, and he better do that because he's supposed to be down the middle.
Right. Well, the judges in
He's
DC
not supposed to be directing the
with
prosecution.
January 6 cases were upset that they weren't charging with more stuff.
That immediately tells you they have lost all sense of what it means to be a judge. It's not their job to tell the prosecutor what to do.
And is it normal for judges to start, reprimanding people from the bench, yelling at attorneys, telling people that they're an insurrectionist well before any evidence of that was ever presented, like, at a bail hearing, for example?
No, it indicates that they have lost any form of emotional control and probably should find something else to do with their life.
Well, I would argue that a lot of these judges who say they were, like, for example, I'm not going to name names, but there's judges down there that were saying they were watching January 6 transpire from their windows. So they were witnesses to,
Well,
quote
then
unquote,
they
the
should
crime.
they
They
should
should recuse themselves. That's a good point.
Of course they should. Of course, a lot of that is self-enforcing. You're supposed to recuse yourself when you examine I'll use a Catholic expression, but when you examine your conscience and you realize you can't be fair. And I've seen judges do that. Every once in a while in my career, a judge would recuse himself. We didn't know why.
Right.
There was probably something about the case that the judge knew
Right.
he
It's
was
the right thing
he
to
was
do.
prejudiced about, and he couldn't be fair about it. He would say, "I'm sorry, you would inform my assistant or me or whatever. I'm going to recuse myself in this case." And it's for, and then he would say it's for a personal reason.
Well, they're moralists. Like I'll use this example. I'm a boxing judge, or I was for a while, and I would recuse myself. And I would like to stay and judge my friend's fight or someone from my gym because I would like to, that person to win. But just to do the right thing, I'll recuse myself, and I don't really tell anyone why. I'll just say I'm not going to judge this fight because I know that person. I know
You don't have to judge
right.
why.
But that's the judges are not doing that. It's almost like the opposite. They feel like they have to be on this case. They have to, make sure that these people go to jail for a long time because they try to overturn democracy, and they're completely convinced of this, and they're almost acting like activists from the bench. Actually, they are activists from the bench. And
I tried my third case as an assistant U.S. attorney in front of the judge that I was a law clerk for, and I clerked for him for 2 years, and he was more than the judge I clerked for. He was like my second father, even by then, but throughout my life. And my third case, which was a tax evasion case, way above my level of experience, but the U.S. Attorney's Office was bombarded with cases. The U.S. Attorney just wanted to get rid of them. So he gave you cases that you just had to figure out how to handle. So at the beginning of the case, the judge told the defense lawyer, whose name was Lou Bender, always remembered, a very, very great tax criminal lawyer. He said, Lou, and he would call him by his first name. And I knew Lou because Lou tried cases in front of the judge when I was his law clerk. He said, Lou, you know that Mr. Giuliani was my law clerk. Lou said, yes. He said, of course, I'll recuse myself. Lou said, no, I want you to recuse yourself. Judge, I know you're going to be just as hard on him as me, and probably you're going to be harder on him. So I don't have any problem. And man, he was. He drove me nuts during the case. And I was just a kid. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And he made me sum up with no preparation. And I gave the summation, and I thought I oh, I had like a whole night of preparation I was going to do. And then his court, I can tell the story now because he's been dead for many years and this goes way back. But his court called me and said, the judge will never tell you this, but he's walking around the chamber saying, boy, you're already a great trial lawyer. And man, it was one of the best experiences of my life. It was better than graduating from law school. Because he was tough. I mean, he was tough. He was really, really tough. He used to make lawyers cry.
Really?
He made a lawyer faint.
No.
Absolutely. I know who the lawyer is. I won't tell you his name. He's a good friend of mine. And I got him ready for the trial. I had him ready on everything, every single quirk the judge had. He knew about it. He knew about it. He knew about it. But he was so nervous, obviously. He gets up to begin the case because the government opens first. And he gets up and he turns toward the jury and he says, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is boom. He goes right down.
No.
And then I went to see the judge afterwards and I said, are you proud of yourself?
He loved it.
He said, kid'll be a good lawyer. That's the way I was trained by Judge Donovan. And he worked for Donovan, the guy who started the CIA in the military. He was in the military before. And so that was the kind of training he had. And he was like, he got trained that way. It was like a Marine basic training. And the only way you're going to be a good lawyer if you go through this. Yeah. If you get through basic training, you'll never have. He said, I'm going to make it so difficult for you. Whatever you face is going to seem like there's nothing. And it was true.
Right.
I'd have like dilemmas in trials, and I'd remember back to when he wanted a charge written in 1 hour, and it would take 5. And I would say, Judge, I'll get you 1 hour. I'll get you 1 hour. He said, you're going to get me a great one. But
what's a characteristic that all good trial lawyers share? And it's something that when you look back, Mayor, yourself and others, give us something here.
Obviously, the ability to communicate. Some of the things are obvious, but one of the things that isn't is you have to be to be a really, really good trial. You got to be an actor.
A performer.
You have to be a different person depending on the trial. If you have a very sympathetic, if you're a great cross examiner because you just wither people down, right? Well, that's going to work. Like if you had a politician, or people have no sympathy for them, so you can wither them down. But if you get a defendant that's very sympathetic, you better be able to change your personality and not wither them. You better become much more humble. Not a bad idea in a cross-examination with a politician, who are the easiest people to cross-examine because they lie. And they never get caught. I'm telling you this, having convicted many of them.
Boski.
They have no sense of telling. They somewhere in the second or third year of running for office, they forgot to tell the truth. And then they just do it. And they don't realize now that if you got a good prosecutor, for every lie that you have, he's got the proof that you're lying. He's got the grand jury testimony or the document or the recording and by the time they go through a half hour of it, they're like,
Do they perjure themselves often?
Perjure themselves. I mean, I don't think I ever prosecuted a politician, and they're always dying to testify. And it's always a mistake. They always get ruined. And even if they're smarter than you are, because they lie more than you do.
Well, before we go, I want to change topics to our guests here. Kara, we're talking to the mayor here about what it takes to be a good lawyer. Give us a characteristic that good, and the mayor might be able to butt in on this one too. Let's hear from Kara first. Boxing. What makes a good boxer?
I'm sure this is the same with the politician. It's all the work you do. You have to work hard when you're not on the stage. The hard work before. It's
discipline.
like discipline.
But that's a given. Right?
I mean, that's a given.
No.
Okay. You have to be born with like the instinct. It's something you're born with. Like if someone punches you in the face, that automatically you get excited and want to punch them back. And that's a really rare thing, I think.
There you go.
Like it wakes you up and you're like, yes.
My father was a boxer, and he said there were two things where you could tell if you really had a fighter. Number one, at the very beginning, can they take a punch?
Right.
Meaning, do they panic over it?
Right.
Or is it just, he said, do they look at it as, the person hit me, now it's my opportunity to be able to hit.
Right.
If you hit me, you're open.
Right. That's exactly it. That's what I mean.
Does your mind get, and the emotions cloud your thinking ability so that when the person hits you, you see the opening, or you see nothing because you're and then when you get knocked down for the first time.
Yeah, if you get back up. I mean, most trainers at the beginning, they don't want to waste time, so they'll just throw you in there. Like if you're a brand new boxer with somebody, and they'll just say beat them up, just
Really?
to see if the person has heart. Like you could tell right away. That's
The
something
killer
you
instinct.
really can't learn. It's something you're born with.
If you have the killer
Right.
instinct.
Or if you're going to get beat up because they'll put you in there with someone more experienced, if you're going to come back the next day to the gym, and you're right, if somebody gets hit, some people are just born not to get hit. They freeze up, they freak out, they just become like overwhelmed with emotion, and they can't think clearly. And that you could see that if the first time you get punched in the face. I don't think a lot of people really ever got punched in the face to understand that, but it really is a thing. Like to get punched flush in the face and react, there's one or two ways you can react.
My father and I watched the first Ali Frazier fight together. And after it was over, he said, "Yep, he's a great champ." And I said, "You mean Frazier? Because he just won the championship." He said, "No, Ali." I said, "Dad, he lost. Yeah, the best thing that happened to him. He got knocked down. He got right up. And boy, did you see him fighting when he got up?
Yeah.
He almost won the fight after he got knocked down. And he lost it. He legitimately lost it. Frazier surprised him, but he won the next two.
Right.
And he won the next two, and those two men killed each other. They both knocked each other into being punch drunk.
Right.
I mean, that was the biggest beatings that two people inflicted on each other that I've ever seen, and they both harmed each other. I mean, they were both wow. Those three fights. When my father said, I never knew if Ali could really take a punch because he would dance around so much.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not even sure he'd been knocked down before, but Frazier knocked him down hard. So if he had been knocked down before, they were just little ones.
Right.
But he got knocked down like maybe he was out, and he got up for the next round. He only had 2 rounds left. For the next 2 rounds, he went wild.
Right. Yeah.
You never saw Ali.
Yeah, you
like
never
that
saw
before.
him, I guess, like that.
Never saw him like that before. I mean, you could see he had the killer instinct.
Right. He
He
definitely
was a
did.
real boxer, a real fighter, not just a boxer.
Yeah, sometimes people are defined by those moments more than when they win.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting conversation, right?
We got a
A champ.
championship boxer and the son of a championship.
Well, it wasn't a championship. He was really good,
A champion boxer.
and he
Champion.
he was a real expert. He actually was a very thoughtful boxer, and he could train you. He was a good trainer. So he thought. I mean, he thought a lot about boxing and about the strategies, and he was a southpaw.
Right.
So he also used to help people who were going to fight a southpaw for the first time, because you should explain to them how difficult.
Yeah, it
that
is difficult. I was actually an expert at that because for some reason in my weight division, there was a lot of southpaws, and it's the opposite of what you're used to. You're fighting somebody who literally looks like they're turned the wrong way. If
What, a
that's
southpaw is a
a
lefty?
southpaw is
Yeah,
a
lefty.
lefty.
So-
So
Guessing.
So it must be when you fight a lot of them, you get used to it.
you do, and then you kind of become, like you said, an expert on it. Like you want to throw a lead cross rather than a jab first because
Right.
it's closer to the person's face, because it's hard to explain. But,
Yeah.
And there's just different ways you move in the ring. You kind of
Mhm.
do everything backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Southpaw.
Southpaw.
That's funny.
I also think in baseball, that there's a whole thing about left-hander against left-hander is an advantage for the pitcher. If enough left-handers see left-handed pitchers, they would hit them much better.
Right. Yeah. Eventually,
One
you
of the
get number.
reasons is that left-handed pitcher is a rare pitcher. So 3 out of 4 times you're going to see a right-hander. So the left-hander, all of a sudden you're watching the ball come in this way.
Right.
If you're a left-hander, right? You're watching the ball come in this way. All of a sudden it's coming this way. It's very different. Now, once you get used to it, it's not.
Right.
And there are some people it doesn't bother, but most people you get an advantage lefty against lefty.
Well,
in baseball.
lefties also have an advantage in boxing because they're the unorthodox one.
Yes,
So
yeah,
they
I
have
think
an
that-
advantage.
Shit, if they can hit.
Right.
Wow.
Maybe we'll do a show sometime in 24. We'll have Kara. We'll somehow figure out a way to do the show.
We'll
from
bring a
gym.
ring here. Yeah, we
We'll
could
bring
do
a
that.
ring.
Pick up. Why don't we pick somebody we don't like and have a knock them out?
Who
Oh
could
my
that
gosh.
be? There's a lot of
I would
people we
never
don't
buy-
like.
I would never buy. Kara would take me out. One punch from Kara, I'm on the floor. I'm not afraid to.
How about against the Democrat?
I'm not afraid to admit it.
That would be great.
Kara's a tough one.
Tough brawler.
We want all. That's. I don't think you're allowed to say that.
What?
You were just canceled, by the way.
That-
Just got the tweet.
I think that's on the
producer
Harvard
canceled.
list. Unlike you
Oh.
could say genocide for the Jews, but
Yeah.
you can't say tough broad.
Oh, I say broad.
Damn. Sorry, Kara, if I offended you.
okay.
President Gay would fire you immediately. Whereas the other, she would examine the context in which you wanted,
context.
if you were advocating for the genocide of the Jewish people, she would look at the context in which you're doing it. I don't know. I guess if you kill them with one thing, it'd be okay, but something else.
At Harvard, if I said I hated Jews, they would give me a full ride scholarship. That's pretty much. What
Do you
you're
know?
saying.
You know,
Yeah.
it was rated on free speech 0. It got a 0 rating, no free speech.
At Harvard?
Harvard got the worst rating on free speech out of hundreds of colleges that was studied. And it got one of the very worst ratings on anti-Semitism. And Harvard's got a very interesting history because it's going back to its roots. Harvard was also at one time the most anti-Semitic of the Ivy League schools. They would not admit Jewish. Their medical school was famous for it, but wouldn't admit Jewish students.
Right.
They used to call City College in New York the Harvard of New York because Jewish kids could go to City College, and an awful lot of very bright, smart people graduated from City College because you couldn't get into Harvard. Then all of a sudden, it became about 25% of the class, which is a very large number when you consider that the Jewish people are only about 2% of the population.
Right.
A small group of people. They were 25% of the class. But in recent years, they've gone down to only 8%.
Wow.
And when you consider how good they are as students, right? A small group, very big emphasis on education. They're just going to generally do better.
Most people realize in college is most of the time a waste of time.
But it
I
has
think
to be
it
better
is.
than
They're all saying
Right.
now.
But it didn't used to be.
Now it is. Now
It
they
didn't
teach
used
you
to be.
liberal
I
arts
would
and all
tell
this
you
weird
I
stuff.
would give up my college education for anything in the world.
Well, you're a lawyer, so you need to go to college
No,
if you're
but I mean-
a trade
the
school,
college
you
part
know.
of it, even if I didn't go to law school.
Right.
I mean, I went to Manhattan College and we
For
studied
what? What did you study?
Western civilization. I got a Bachelor of Arts degree, and we basically, my major was political science and philosophy, and I studied Western civilization.
That's
for 4 years.
interesting. I don't think it's the same way anymore. I think they're just
Fabulous
yeah.
education. It was a terrific education. And I think anybody that graduated me would tell you the same thing. I'll interview one of my classmates one day. And, really fabulous education.
Back then, I know it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Well,
Could I say one question?
one question, and then we got to let people go to sleep.
We're talking about before. Do you think that the chaos in the legal system is what Schumer was talking about when he said 7 ways to Sunday?
What?
When you suddenly have a justice system that's doing things that don't make sense anymore.
I don't know when he said this.
Schumer said in response to going after the intelligence agencies, right? They have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you.
No, I don't think
No,
they were referring.
unrelated?
No. I think they were referring to
Don't get you.
like the way they tried to frame Trump
Like
with
you.
Russian collusion.
Or you, Mayor.
Yeah.
The 51
There's no
spies
connection
who
in
lied.
that then? There's
No, I don't think it's the legal system as much. It's the
The
investigatory.
intelligence
system.
community.
Joe Schumer has no idea what he's talking about.
I agree. That was my first
No,
go-to.
he knows exactly what he's talking
To
about.
even quote Chuck Schumer
Well-
is
Sorry, you're wrong. He knows exactly what he's talking
Yeah.
about. And that's why nobody ever changes.
Is he a nice
Yeah.
guy? Have you ever had
Bingo.
communications with him, like sat to dinner with him, or?
More than I would like to admit.
Yeah.
And he's a smart guy. He's really
Oh,
crafty.
he is definitely a smart guy. He is definitely crafty.
Politician.
I won't go any further unless I have to. But I mean, he's also leaves a lot to be desired. And his lack of really defending his own people, I find disgraceful. His caving in. I mean, he gave that speech finally after 8 weeks. But he's really careful. He doesn't react against the people in Congress who say the worst things about the Jewish people. Gosh, I do. I feel like I do much more than he does in defending the Jewish people, and it's tragic that he doesn't do that. There's something missing in his character as a result of that. But all
Will
right.
New York, will
Yeah.
Jews in New
He's a
York,
sellout for sure.
will they
Something
pay the
really-
price at the ballot box?
They should. I mean, they really should. I mean, when one of your own can't defend you and has to worry about, sucking up to Biden and pretending that Biden is really prosecuting this war correctly. Biden and Blinken and the stinking Blinken have made it impossible for Bibi to eliminate Hamas. They are not going to be able to do it given the strictures that they have put on them. And we'll explain that on Monday. So thank you very, very much for being with us. Please say a prayer for the people of Israel. Please say a prayer for the United States. Thank you very much, Kara.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Love
and
Kara.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for what you're doing for our Americans that are being treated so horribly that I believe that in our history, this will be like the Japanese internment. It'll be a period of time.
I hope
like
people
that.
remember history the right way. You never know. It gets
they didn't
rewritten
remember
by
it
the
right way
victors.
then I think that with all the tape being there, which will eventually all come out, and they played it so they exaggerated it so much. You know, if they had just played it for what it was, there were some things that were done wrong. Just concentrate on that. I mean, insurrection without guns. I mean, that's ridiculous. Well, and now you watch the cops were like tour guides.
Yeah, the cops were tour guides. You know, and all the cops that were on the January 6th committee lied, and that's been proven, but nobody talks about it on the news.
And the
So-
guys we see are like tour guides. Open the door and show them where to go. Well, thank you very much. And of course, God bless America.